Rika. Really? I just introduced you to the camera and you start licking yourself. Rika. Beautiful potato. Beautiful potato. No, don't loaf on my lap. I'm doing a video. No, ma'am. You can. Oh, okay. Well, I guess I'm trapped now. Anyways, this right here is the Eureka TheBoss 4D. So, this particular machine is one that used to be one of Eureka's mid to higher end range machines that they sold in the early 2000s. And this particular example is one of the slightly newer variants with the newer Eureka logo, but the actual machine is the same as it's been for, well, quite a number of years. Of course, this machine has been discontinued since Eureka was sold off to Medea, but it is very prevalent on the second-hand market, and a lot of people may be wondering if this is a machine that's worth picking up in some sort of second-hand form. Well, let's find out in this full in-depth review of the Eureka TheBoss 4D, featuring my cat Rika. Now, we did not name her because we are not the people that originally owned her, so her name is not a reference to the brand of this machine, it's just simply her name. And I believe it's spelled R-I-K-A. And she's buzzing. Hi, Rika. Rika, do you like the Eureka? Does Rika like the Eureka? Okay. So, I've been using this machine as my daily driver for the last few days. Basically a week, but unlike many other machines, I actually didn't use this every day. Normally when I review a machine, I will review it after about a week of using it, and that will be literally a week of usage, so usually I will use it every single day for at least several days, up to a week, or potentially even two, before I give my final review and verdict on the machine. The reason why this differs is not necessarily because of any fault with the machine itself in terms of its something that's a result of its age, but it's actually just as a result of how unpleasant the machine is to use, and I haven't wanted to use it. This machine weighs 23 pounds, and it definitely shows. It's very bulky. It's not maneuverable at all. I mean, you just look at this thing and it looks like a boat anchor, and not in a good way. And yeah, it's just not pleasant to use. Yes, there obviously isn't a swivel neck or anything like that, but the entire machine is just very thick, very bulky. The power head has a wide cleaning path, which a lot of people seem to think they want as features, but it's just not a good idea, especially in this implementation with the excess amount of plastic in this design, and the fact that there is, of course, a second motor in the power head as well increases the weight. So, since there is a second motor, I will say that the best aspect of this machine is the fact that it is relatively versatile. You have a fingertip control right up on the top of the handle that has the option to turn the switch off to the one position for bare floors and the 2 position for carpets. If you're used to using a modern Shark, Navigator liftaway, the switch design is identical, only it's better because it's actually on the handle. So all that is nice. But unfortunately, the machine is just really heavy in the hand. It's really heavy to maneuver, and pushing and pulling this thing is an absolute slog, even when you have the height adjustment dial adjusted correctly. There is a height adjustment dial which allows you to adjust it from bare floors up to thick carpets, and ironically the bare floor setting is one notch above the low carpet setting, which kind of makes sense because that gives you enough space for debris to pass through the bottom, but only fine debris. There is no way that you'll be able to pick up large debris with this machine, especially with the entirely offset suction path, and that's another disadvantage as well. Offset suction is just not really excusable in today's day and age when we have been able to make vacuums with center feed suction for decades. And while there are other Eurekas that have side feed suction that still work really well, This machine, it does clean very well, but that certainly doesn't help the maneuverability of it, as the actual performance of this machine is excellent. Its performance on bare floors leaves a little bit to be desired, but you're not going to expect it to be perfect. It's okay, it could be better, but it also could be worse. However, its carpet cleaning performance is fantastic. Right off the bat, it cleans incredibly well. In fact, I'll show you once I get this cat off my lap how much dirt this thing has picked up in just the short period of time I've been using it. Rika, would you mind letting me up, please? 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 Is that a no? Okay, I guess. Sorry for asking. Hey. Hey. I love you. Okay, can I get up now? Please? As previously stated, I'm incapacitated. I have a cat on my lap. Cat on my lap. So in order to remove the dirt container, you just take this little lever right here and you twist it. That allows you to pull out the dirt. The dirt cup, I just bit my tongue. So the way this works is there's a little top cover that you have to pull off, and then you can dump this cup in the trash. Now, as you can see, this whole thing gets really dirty and gross, and the filtration on this machine is absolutely abysmal. This design allows a lot of big debris to come through, and as a result clog this filter right up here. And this has a design that kind of reminds me of the main dust cup on the Whirlwind Lightspeed. You've got this little button right here that you lift up, and this is the Pet Fresh filter. Now, this filter you definitely want to wash at least every month and replace it probably every year or two. And you can tell that, again, this filtration is not good. There's actual hair stuck to this. And this is a two-piece filter with the removable foam and the main back piece. And you want to wash this very thoroughly when you go to use this machine, or I should say once you've used the machine for a while. And you want to let that dry for at least 48 hours before you slide this back on. And that, of course, just lines up right back there. And clicks right back into place. So the actual amount of junk that this thing managed to pull out of the carpet is very impressive. So its actual carpet cleaning performance is fantastic. This machine is really good, and you can definitely tell it's cleaning better than my daily driver, which is currently the Dyson Ball Animal 2. This machine just has a lot more raw brush roll power from its design, from what I can tell. And this does have a wooden brush roll, which is powered by a second motor, hence why you're able to shut off the brush roll. That also means that the belt is a long-lasting belt, so it's not an expendable belt. So that definitely helps as well. So that's at least one less thing you have to maintain. So all that is good. And on the side, we have a HEPA filter as well. This is not a sealed system, but by default it comes with an Arm & Hammer filter. Arm & Hammer used to make great filters, but unfortunately they're not really around anymore, which sucks because they made really good accessories. But this just pops off with this little lever, and you can replace the HEPA filter pretty easily. So the final filtration is pretty good. That HEPA filter definitely does a good job as far as what it itself is doing, and you should probably replace that HEPA filter about every year or two. But again, the actual filtration going into that filter is not good. This is not a sealed system, and it leaks dust everywhere. Fairly typical of an early 2000s vacuum design. We do not have any sort of cyclonic separation. So while this machine picks up a lot of dirt, and that's great, you're also passing a lot of that through the filters and through the motor, Although thankfully this is a lot better at keeping that stuff out of the motor versus something like a first gen Bissell Cleanview or even a Hoover wind tunnel twin chamber. So it has its advantages. Although again, the actual bagless setup on this, while it's better than things like the Ultima and the first gen Whirlwind, those machines were just awful. It still is not very good by modern standards. So while this dust cup is very easy to dump, it requires a lot of cleaning and a lot of maintenance. So there is a trade-off there. Machine cleans really good, but there is a good amount of maintaining that you'll have to do to keep it running and keep it from spewing as much dust back into your air, which it will definitely do that from time to time. The attachments on this machine are pretty okay. They're definitely a mixed bag. Whenever we look at the back of the machine where the attachments go, we have what seems to be a nice long hose, but unfortunately there isn't much stretch to this. This actual hose is relatively stiff. You can see it attaches right here. This particular one has some duct tape on it, but it doesn't actually leak any suction, so keep in mind, if you get one of these, the hose will be a little bit longer. And I believe you still can get hoses for this, so this would be an easy replacement for whoever decides to buy this. And yeah, based on that, you can tell I'm not keeping this machine. So this hose, you can pull it out of this caddy down here, but that requires you to take out a screw, which is just not all that easy. This hose does not stretch enough. It's not enough to go up any sort of flight of stairs. It's just barely enough to get up into your corners of your room, especially with the included attachments. So it definitely could be shorter, but it could be a lot longer. But for the $200 that this machine retailed for when it was new, it's not ideal, but it's certainly passable. Again, you're not going to get up your stairs unless you have a small staircase with a landing in between. Basically, translation, you're not going to take this upstairs unless it's the type of stairs that any vacuum with a hose would do. So, nothing special about the hose. We do have this upholstery tool that's supposed to be sort of an upholstery dusting brush combo, but it really just kind of fails at both. The upholstery tool version of it, or using it as an upholstery tool I should say, is okay. It gets some stuff up, but it's not that great. And it's just a bit too harsh to be a dusting brush, so it's meh. It's definitely better than some other tools that I've seen, but it's not great. I prefer dedicated tools, but this primarily functions as a dusting brush because this machine also came with the Pet Power Paw, which some versions of the Pet Power Paw will have a wider brush roll, and then there's other versions with the riser visor that lets you vacuum the back side of stairs. Now, as you can see by the empty caddy, I don't have one of those, so I can't really comment on its performance, but from what I remember from using them in the past, they're actually really solid turbo tools, so not much to complain about there. Now, in addition to this, which has a little slot right there, by the way, to use the crevice tool on this as a makeshift extension wand. So other than this, we do have the aforementioned crevice tool and extension wand. So the extension wand and the crevice tool are plenty long and give you plenty of amounts of reach. And like I mentioned earlier, you can take the upholstery tool and slide it on the end of the crevice tool and use it as an extension wand. And you actually get a pretty decent amount of reach with this whole setup. So it's certainly not bad. There is definitely much worse you can do for your $200 back in the day. I'm saying $200 because these are $189, and of course you have to include tax. So yeah, so the attachments on this, the main disappointment is the hose itself, which again is a bit too stiff to really be all that useful, but at least it's somewhat passable. And this hose, as long as you don't have stairs or you don't have very big stairs, then you could certainly get away with this hose setup pretty nicely. So if you have a single floor home, this would be very, very suitable. In fact, there's actually one special thing about this machine that you're probably seen already that really sets it apart, in my opinion, that I really like, and that's the telescopic duster. Now, this telescopic self-cleaning duster is one of the best features that I've seen included on a vacuum, and it's a shame that Eureka doesn't do this anymore, because it's a great feature. As you can see right here, there's a duster that is inside this little caddy. It's just clicked in, so you just pull it out, and as you can see, the actual duster kind of came off. There's a little locking mechanism right here that we twist, and that allows it to lock into place, and then you can twist this and extend it all the way. This is actually a really good length, and it allows me to get up and dust the corners of my rooms, get the cobwebs, all that stuff. And I've actually found this to be incredibly useful. So this is just fantastic because it's a duster that you can use without needing to have it attached to a vacuum cleaner, but you also have a built-in mechanism to clean it and to store it. Pretty much every other time that I've owned a standalone duster, I've somehow found a way to lose it. And this machine does not suffer from that at all because it has a handy little silo that the duster sits into. This is part of the reason why this is one of my favorite features on a vacuum and why I love these Eurekas that come with it. Now, putting this duster back together is a little tricky because you have to twist everything just right to get it to sit back in. But once you get it, storing this is fine. Again, it's a little tricky to get it all back together, but once you do, it's fine. And any dust that you get trapped on this goes away when you put this back in, because you put this back in, you click it back on, which it clicks in there pretty snugly. And if you look underneath, there's this small yellow tab right here, and it's a valve. So whenever you press this, that diverts the suction from the hose into this portion. And if you do it just right, the twister or the duster will actually start twisting, and that will, as a result, clean itself off. And I'll demonstrate that real quick. Headphone warning. So yeah, when you press that yellow lever, it just diverts the suction to the dusting chamber, and that allows it to suck off all the dust and the cobwebs and all that stuff. And it works really well. So I don't know why so many other people write off this feature, because this is actually my favorite feature of the Boss 4D. And there are some other Eureka vacuums that have this as well, like the Whirlwind Lightspeed, and I believe some versions of the Ultima have it as well. But this is a fantastic feature, and I love the built-in duster. It's just such a neat little idea, and it's definitely something that I really enjoy. The only problem with this is that because of how much this sticks out, whenever I'm trying to turn corners with this, which is awkward enough given there's no swivel neck and how heavy this can often bump on furniture. So that's really the only complaint I can think about with this design. And yeah, I would definitely put up with that for a built-in duster, especially when it's implemented on a machine that's much more lightweight than this, which this is not at all lightweight. So that definitely the added duster doesn't necessarily decrease its weight, but it does at least help justify it a little bit, even though this obviously doesn't weigh all that much, because you're at least getting some functionality back out of the incredible boat anchor weight that this thing is. So, yeah, that's pretty much that. Now, finally, we'll talk about the build quality before we get into the pickup test and the final conclusions. So, the build quality on this is unfortunately not very good, and it's primarily not very good in the part where it matters the most, which is the part that you're going to be holding, the handle. So, the handle on this, can you hear the creaking? The handle on this is built like garbage. And that really sucks because the rest of the machine is not built all that badly, especially for the price. The plastic, it can maybe feel a little bit hollow depending on where you knock on it, but for the most part, it feels relatively solid and sturdy. But again, the rest of the machine, it doesn't matter how sturdy it is if the handle feels like junk. And the handle on this machine feels like junk. It just creaks way too much, even when the screws are in all the way and properly torqued. It's just not designed well, which, if the handle was a lot more sturdy, that would really improve the feeling of the machine and make the machine feel built a lot better, because that's ultimately the most important thing you're going to hold on a vacuum. If a handle does not feel sturdy, the rest of the vacuum is going to feel horrible, because that's the part that you're holding when you're using a vacuum 99% of the time. So, unfortunately, the handle really kind of ruins the build quality for it. Although, again, the build quality for the rest of the machine is okay, even if the handles are prone to breaking. The only other thing that is prone to breaking on this machine is the pedal release. Although it does work perfectly fine on this unit, and it has the same double release that a lot of other machines of the era have, where you can press it again and go underneath furniture. I put that in air quotes because this machine is so tall and so bulky, there's really not much furniture it will go under, but it's theoretically there. And the pedal release on this is built better than a lot of Hoover and Bissell pedal releases that existed at the time. So there is definitely some advantage there. But again, in my opinion, it's not quite worth it. So we're going to get into the pickup test real quick. But again, like I mentioned, the pickup performance on carpets in the real world is very good, and the pickup performance on the bare floors is mediocre in the real world. But since there is at least a brushless shutoff, it's not as bad as it could be. It at least fails to pick up stuff instead of spraying it all over the place. So there is that. Here we have the Intellitech Studios pickup test. We've got potato flakes on the carpet, on the bare floor, and the transition between the two. Now, this machine, like I mentioned before, does have several height adjustment positions, but I will be leaving it on the bare floor setting since it doesn't really affect its ability to push on carpet. It's still bad, and it is the setting you're supposed to use on bare floor. So I'll just leave it on that for this entire test so we're not having to stop in the middle of it and adjust the height. Okay, that was my bad. It looked like this machine did horribly, and technically it did, but the hose fell out. And I didn't realize that until afterwards. So, false alarm, we're gonna have to redo this because the hose wasn't attached all the way, so it obviously wasn't getting good suction. So, we're gonna have to do a take two on that. Alright, I kind of just haphazardly spread it all, but whatever, these pickup tests don't matter anyway, so let's try this again. Okay, that was obviously much better. So, on carpets, pretty good. Struggled a little bit towards the edge of the carpet. That's not exactly atypical. This machine does better at deep cleaning than it does at surface debris. This is why pickup tests are never representative, because this machine cleans better than other machines like the Dyson Ball Animal 2. The Animal 2 did much better at getting the actual debris both on the bare floors, on the carpets, and what was on the edges of the carpets. So again, this stuff is not representative. This is just for fun, and or just to specifically show how it deals with surface debris. And as we can see, it's snow plowed. Even on the bare floor mode, it's snow plowed a lot of the potato flakes. You can see right there, just snow plowed. All of this just right out of the view of the camera. So, yeah, bare floor performance it's better than nothing, but that's not saying a lot. But its carpet clean performance is pretty good, and it definitely is better at deep cleaning than it is at surface level cleaning. So, take with that what you will. So, in conclusion, the Eureka TheBoss 4D is a machine that I had wanted in my collection for a long time because of it essentially being what seemed to be the ultimate Eureka. But unfortunately, the really, really abhorrent amount of weight, the lackluster cleaning performance on bare floors, which basically doesn't do enough to justify the extra motor and the brush roller shutoff, and just the fact that the overall experience of using it is very unpleasant, along with the filtration. This just overall is not a machine that I'd recommend. Now, if you really want something that will go good in your vacuum collection, but that also will clean very well, and you do not care about weight, or if you're one of those people that actually prefer a heavier vacuum because you like sort of the workout feel of it, then there you go. This is a good machine in that respect. But for most people, I wouldn't recommend picking one of these up if you're trying to use it as a vacuum. And a lot of older Eurekas like this, with some exceptions like the Whirlwind Lightspeed, a lot of other older Eurekas aren't good choices just for the simple fact that finding parts is going to be a pain if there's anything broken on it, which if you're buying something that's this old, there might be something wrong with it. So, while there's a lot of features on this I do like, the headlight is good, the cleaning performance is good, the machine's not that loud, it's actually pretty quiet, which I do like. The duster is really cool, the cord's nice and long, and when it has the turbo brush, that's really nice as well. The weight and the filtration just kill it for me, and the bad quality of the handle design. So, yeah, it's a mixed bag, and this machine, based on my usage and how little I was really ever wanting to use it, this machine is not going to stay in my collection. So it will be sold as soon as I'm able to find a box big enough for this piece of crap. So, if you want this machine, then once I find a box, I will gladly sell it. It's just trying to find a box that fits something this huge, or mainly this wide, is a problem. So once I get that situated, this machine will be going up for sale. So if you do like this machine, then feel free to purchase this once it's available. So anyways, this is Intellitech Studios signing out with my full in-depth review of the Eureka TheBoss 4D bagless upright vacuum cleaner. If you were buying this back in the day for $200 and I was reviewing this brand new, you might ask, well, is it worth the $200 or was it? And no, I don't think it was. I think that there just are better options that you could get for your $200, and I would say at that price, back in the day, I don't really know what I would have picked over this in the $200 price range, but there's plenty of vacuums I would have picked that are a little bit cheaper than this, like the Whirlwind Lightspeed, like the Bissell Powerglide Platinum, like the Hoover Wind Tunnel bagged, and there's definitely are other options, or even just saving up some extra money and picking up a Dyson. Although back then, this certainly would have cleaned the pants off the Dyson. So, anyways, I'm rambling. This is Intellitech Studios signing out. I'll see you guys in the next video. I hope you enjoyed this in-depth review of the Eureka TheBoss 4D. If there's anything I missed and you have a question about it, feel free to drop it in the comments below and I'll happily answer. And that is pretty much that. I'll see you guys in the next video, and I hope you all have a good one. Peace, and let me know what you'd like me to review next.